Okay, so for the rosette cake, we are using the rosette tip. This one, depending on different brands you use, they all have different names. This one is actually a Wilton M1. Wilton also has a smaller one called 74 that works for smaller cakes, cupcakes, things like that. But it's a basic rosette one. Nothing too fancy about it. These are usually involved in any cupcake kit or any cake designing kit. You get these kind of tips. Okay, I am using this to help me. You can use bags, you can use whatever you want. This is a typical kind of tool for me. Now the thing is, we're going to be using a lot of frosting, and I actually used the cans of frosting, so I'll probably go through about 4 of them on this cake and refill this about 3 or 4 times. So you can make your own frosting, you can buy frosting. It depends on how fast you want to do it. The cake is relatively fast to do. The hardest and time challenging part is to constantly either fill up the bag or to put frosting in and constantly use frosting. You will, like I said, you will use a lot of frosting. So I'm going to show you a few of the steps, and then I'm going to cut, and then I'll show you at the end. Alright, so after I just loaded this up, even if you use a bag, you want to make sure that some of the air bubbles are kind of out of it. So kind of squirt it just to make sure it doesn't kind of pop. And you might get it a little bit, but that's okay. The cake is kind of not meant to be neat. So when you start, I usually do a clockwise pattern. I start somewhat in the middle, and I keep it kind of close. Try to not leave kind of holes in it when you do it. Try to keep it pretty close, pretty compact to kind of keep that pattern. Like I said, it's a messy kind of cake. It's not perfect, so if you do mess up, it's okay. Also, the nice thing with these are if you absolutely hate one of the rosettes, just take a butter knife or a tool and just kind of wipe it off, and you can kind of correct the edges of the other ones you do. So kind of keep them close too, because if not, you have to go back and refill this. Some people like to do real small ones. I like to do a mixture of small and large. You try to put something there to keep it from moving. It's moving on me a little bit. But eventually you have to go in and kind of fill in these little holes and cubbies where you missed. So I usually do that. I overlap some of mine too to keep them kind of there. I also might go back, and if one of the rosettes isn't as close, like, I'll give you an example. If one of the rosettes isn't that close, I can go back towards the end and kind of fill that, and it kind of blends in with the rest of it so it doesn't look too off. So try to keep your rosettes compact, try to keep them together, or else go in and fill in the spots that you missed. And have fun with it. Like I said, this cake is pretty easy and it looks very professional, even for an amateur, for the first time doing it. And I'm doing mine in white, so classic white. It's always a nice touch. And I'm going to refill now. So I bring you back to the completed cake. Now, I chose to fill some of the holes with smaller rosettes that I kind of placed over top of it. I like to overlap my cake. I don't think it's meant to look super neat, so I like this design and this idea. Now for the top of it, I overlapped my top rosettes over top of the ones on the side, so they kind of blend in together. And it kind of creates like a flow going down the side of the cake. A lot of people like to put a giant one in the middle. I typically don't. But it's all up to you and how you design it and how you want to do it. I just really like the layered look, and I like how they lay on top of each other. I like putting smaller ones. Those are just kind of my more favorite things. Also, this took about 3 cans of icing to do, just the design. So you are kind of getting into a lot of icing, and that's really the most time-consuming part. If you're using a bag, putting, more bags together, refilling, some kind of cake decorator. It just all depends on your style. And I actually put this in the refrigerator. This, because there's so much icing on it, this will melt if you leave it out overnight or for a long period of time. It will melt. See, this needs to be refrigerated. I've taken it out and it's sat out for 2 or 3 hours after it's been refrigerated. So after it's a little bit more stable, but it will melt if you leave it out for a lot longer. But now that it's been in the refrigerator, there are some corners that are kind of sticking up, and sometimes that drives people insane. So now that it's been in the refrigerator, I can easily take my finger, kind of smooth those down, and make them kind of look more natural. As I said, do not try this if it has not been in the refrigerator. You will get more of a mess. So that's something very easy that you can do. Have fun with this cake. It's, like I said, I don't think, there are people that like to make it absolutely neat and like to do small ones and like to do like a very detailed pattern, which is perfectly fine. But I think as just starting out, this is a wonderful cake to make. It looks professional. It looks like you really put a lot of time into it when you really didn't. I know a lot of people who use different colors, different things to put on it. I like the classic white, but I will put spray-on colors or use spray, or use dyed icing. But it's really up to you. And you can also layer the dyed icing ones and do different color ones and overlap them. It becomes really interesting and intricate once you get kind of used to it. And this is a cake that the first time I made it, I was like, yeah, that looks great. And that's hard to say sometimes about the first time you do a cake. So that's why I wanted to do this cake first, because I think it is something that most people can do and come out with a result that they desire, they like, or something that they can say, oh, that looks like what the professional did. So good luck to you, and happy caking.